Policy Institute is different from normal school because all of us chose this topic specifically.
The Policy Institute is a great opportunity because it has a lot more hands-on learning.
You're interacting with people more and you're talking to new people that you didn't know and you're like meeting these professionals.
This Policy Institute consists of going out and engaging with the community and actually advocating for the topic that you picked.
And it also allows you to empathize with a bunch of people because it's more interaction based rather than lectures.
So one story that really affected me was Rauf in Salam Neighbor. He's a little kid and his school was bombed and he was living in a refugee camp with thousands of other people. You don't really realize how damaging these events can be to someone's life.
We had a speaker named Victor who came and visited us. He came over to this country with his father when he was 2 years old. He started multiple refugee and immigrant help programs and clubs when he was in college and later in graduate school.
We went down to this Downtown Day Services Center. It's run by Pathways to Housing, and one of the people I met there, it was really fascinating. He was actually the father of a GDS student, and you can meet people that are so much closer to you than you would have expected.
One story that has stuck with me so far is hearing Maribel's story. She's a Spanish teacher here, and she told us about when she came here from Cuba and how it's really changed her life, so that was really meaningful for me to hear.
We met with someone named Harold Sims at Friendship Place, organization that helps homeless people and gives them resources in DC.
We went to Our Daily Bread in Baltimore. We got to talk to this guy who was just happened to be in the gym when we were taking a tour, and he told us about his story and how the program there really helped him.
A highlight so far was going to the Rosa Health Clinic yesterday and getting to meet a doctor that works for free. It's so inspiring because she works for no cost, nothing other than the satisfaction of knowing that she's doing something good for her community.
A statistic that was surprising was the fact that there are over 60,000 homeless people in New York City.
There are 71 million people who are displaced globally. And while that number is so huge, it's really hard to comprehend. It's definitely something that people should know.
We were giving produce like vegetables and fruit out at Thrive. And there was this one family that stayed after kind of everybody else cleared out. She had about 4 kids, and she came up to us and asked for an extra bag of oranges. We couldn't give more to her, even though it was obvious that it probably would have helped her a lot. And that was kind of frustrating and challenging.
One of the highlights has been meeting with the GDS teachers. We spent a lot of time off campus talking to a bunch of different stories, but it's nice to reflect on members of our community that have similar stories. That was really interesting.
On Tuesday, we went to Our Daily Bread in Baltimore, and we helped feed over 600 people lunch. Getting to interact with them, seeing how they interact with each other, and actually feel like we were making a difference was really interesting.
When you think soup kitchen, you normally think counter and a line, but the goal there is to help restore the dignity to a person there. So they have it set up in a restaurant style there, and we were all placed in different jobs. I just found that a cool experience.
I think a highlight was World Refugee Day at the Kennedy Center. We went to an event and it was a musical performance by a group of former refugees and immigrants. And at the end it was this big dance party, and everybody was just having fun, and nobody was kind of thinking of the weighted issues that come with immigrants and refugees.
Just getting to interact with all the people we've met, whether it be at Pathways to Housing or Our Daily Bread, just getting to have conversations with these people and learn about their lives has been really interesting.
We got to, Jen came in and talked to us, and she was kind of teaching us how to lobby and just some of the basics, and it was really interesting because that was the first time we actually kind of talked about what you do when you go to lobby for something.
We met with Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson's staff member, and he kept us really engaged in a conversation about living wage in DC and housing. I really appreciated more of a conversation type meeting rather than being spoken at or just bombarding the person with questions.
For the New York trip, we left on Thursday morning and we bussed out for about 6 hours up to New York. We actually went to Ellis Island, which was probably the most interesting thing that we did for me.
We met with the Bowery Residency Committee. They focus on drug rehab and recovery from alcohol abuse. They have lots of beds and housing.
New York City is such a different environment than DC. We were able to notice things and learn things that we wouldn't have been able to learn in DC.
A bright spot for me was when we went to USCRI and Stacey Blake was telling us this story of one of the lost boys of Sudan who reconnected with his mother. He hung up really fast when he started talking to her on the phone because he had to run and buy phone cards. It was just like a really happy moment.
When we went to the Arlington Immigration Court, we saw 10 different cases. One guy got bond. It was for $12,000, but his family was sitting in the courtroom with us, and he smiled on the screen, and then everyone else smiled also, and it was really nice.
Yesterday, Blitz asked us this question. I was trying to pinpoint it to one, and I think that in itself was a bright spot because I couldn't really pick one thing.
Today we walked around to map out an area of DC which we could distribute bread coin, which is like a microcurrency. I got to give a bread coin to a mother and her daughter who is maybe 3 or 4. They were both so excited to be able to get food today.
Well, on the New York trip, we did direct community service with the Arab American Family Services Center, and I met with a woman and just talked about her and her life and helped her practice English, and that was a really big bright spot for me because I felt like I connected with her, and we took a picture for her fridge, which is cute.
In New York, again, we talked to a man named Roger Dennis, who had been living on the streets for a really long time, and he told us about his story and how hard his journey was and how he got to be a functioning member of society. It felt good to see that these organizations are impacting real change.
The Hill Day was also a big highlight for me and for our group, meeting with the people because they all seemed really enthusiastic about the subjects and engaged with us.
A bright spot for me was definitely going to visit the Red Hook Community Center in Brooklyn. They really do a lot of restorative justice. They practice peacemaking and they have classes so that people who get in some trouble can actually get an education and get their GED.
Getting to see how positive and hopeful the people we've interacted with are for the trajectory of their lives has been really inspiring for us and definitely a bright spot.
So a challenging moment for me was when we were in New York City. We went to this place called the Bowery Residence Committee. We got to talk to an alumni of the program. He was telling us about how he was living on the streets in New York City for 12 years. He was later diagnosed with schizophrenia. He was living alone and dealing with that on his own.
One of the nurses described her visit back to El Salvador. That was really difficult for me to hear just because, we hear about a lot of things going on in other countries, but actually experiencing it, like you said, is so different.
I think that going to the Arlington courthouse was kind of a wake-up call for me because you read about all these different immigrants and what may seem as fiction or just another story to one person is the reality to another.
Just the entire experience, with watching the progressions and the different results of a bond and no bond, I thought that was really challenging to watch.
We were learning about a organization called Breadcoin. We were partnered with them in giving out bread coins, and I had to think about, is this something that I think is right? Is this something that I want to endorse? So there's a lot of hard questions that are being raised.
One thing that I'm going to take back is the fact that homelessness can kind of happen to anyone. That kind of perspective, although it is kind of scary to think about and nerve-wracking, it does kind of push us.
One thing that I'm definitely going to take with me into the school year is sort of before the Policy Institute, I didn't have a lot of experience just doing community service, period. The Policy Institute really introduced me to a lot of different types of service. It gave me a better idea of what service can look like. And I think going into the next school year, I'll be much more comfortable sort of seeking out service opportunities.
Learning how to lobby on Capitol Hill. I am super passionate about contacting my representatives and trying to use my voice to make change in our democracy. Getting to learn from Platform and Jen how to lobby and know your issue. They should listen to you and that you are a big part of their constituency. I think that is something that I will carry with me for the rest of my life.
I think the main thing I'm gonna carry with me is like how to be more involved, whether it's like lobbying, involved in like just meetings, engaging with my classmates and colleagues that I'm not good friends with. I think I've taken away so much, but just like being involved in like the moment and like sharing your thoughts and voice is really important. And I think that's the thing I'll bring into my senior year.
Something I'm going to take with me throughout the school year is that there are many, many, many ways to help someone, that it's not just like a black and white issue, that you can help in so many different ways, and even helping a little can go a long way and make a big difference in someone's life.